discussion.
Yeah.
Right.
The fact that my plumber didn't pull.
Okay, we're going to call to order the Public Safety Committee meeting of November 7th. Let the record reflect that Councilmember Hussein has an excused absence and Councilmember Costa is here, so we do have a quorum. With that, we have the minutes from October 17th. Councilmember Costa.
I would move the minutes as written.
We have a motion to move the minutes as written. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. This is the time in the agenda that's open for public comment. If you have an item on the agenda, we can take your comments when that item comes up. Otherwise, unless you have to leave before we get to your item, this is an opportunity for public comment. Is there anyone that would like to make public comment at this time? Okay, we're going to move into discussion and action. The first is a resolution for Make Safe for Demolish for 1722 Denora. And I would turn to Mr. Allen, please.
So this property is, it's been through the process. It was tagged on 9/22/2006. They have no new permits, and it was sent out to bid on 9/12/2023 for our demolition contractor.
But we're carried it again because
I believe this is the one. There was an issue with receiving the proper notification.
okay.
And so we want to make sure that they received it.
I believe that property was the 3301 Turner that didn't get the notification.
I think
this one had a problem with the legal description.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I think you're right. Yep.
Do you have any questions?
I don't. I think Betty's ready to see this gone.
Yeah, I think so too. So with that, we need a motion.
I would move this forward.
We have a motion for Make Safe or Demolish. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. And this is a 60-day. All right. Next, we have the 131 Jackson. Mr. Allen.
So this one was tagged on June the 5th, 2020. This one was also set out to bid on September the 7th, 2023. They have no new permits. No work is being done.
Okay. And this is a 60-day as well. We've done this once before. Would you like to do it again?
I would.
Okay.
So moved.
So we have a motion to Make Safe or Demolish. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next we have 619 West Mount Hope. And what we'll do is have Walter speak first and then gentlemen, then you can address it after that. Mr. Allen.
So this one was tagged on February 23rd, 2022. It's fire damage. We had the demo process, went through the demo board. They referred it down to council because no work was being done. Lack of funds was the reason. Today I noticed that they were issued a building permit for the tear out only. So work has been done on the inside of the unit. And that was issued on September 19th, 2023, that tear out permit.
But not enough to bring it up to?
No.
Okay. Gentlemen, if you'd like to come to the table.
Yeah, hi there. Appreciate everybody's time. My name is Daniel DeHane. I'm the owner of 619 West Mount Hope.
Okay.
Unfortunately, there has been burn damage. We are actively in the process of getting everything eradicated. Obviously, we've done the demo. Everything's been done. Dumpsters there. Dumpsters are gone. You know, so all the debris from the fire is out. at this time. It's boarded up, and I have a close date to a licensed builder, Bob. He's actually pretty well known in the city. He does work all over. He's doing work for the Gillespie Group, who was at the last board up here on Shiawassee. He's doing that whole job right there. So he's actually the investor and the builder who's going to be taking over ownership of the Mount Hope House. So we have a closing date of the 20th, if not sooner.
The 20th of November?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Some of the things that we asked, and I think I made it clear during the public hearing, is in order to move forward, to stop the process from moving forward, was the fact that all permits need to be pulled, that there has to be a demonstration that you have the funds to do the renovations, to bring it up to code, and that you agree on a timeline with Mr. Allen that is reasonable in order to get the work done. But I see we only have one permit that's been pulled so far, so where are we in the process?
Can I speak on it?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So I kind of, because of the way you worded that at the meeting, because obviously I don't own the property now, so
Right.
I'm not going to go, for one, I can't pull the permits until I get the demo completely finished and then get drawings done and all that, so a week for me to do that was not enough time. My funds to buy the property won't even be here until the 18th, so I can't really close on the property or do anything, and without knowing if you're going to demolish it, wasn't going to go pull permits and keep moving forward if you're going to demolish it the week after I buy it. So I wasn't going to go pull permit for a property I don't own yet. I was doing the demo to try to get ahead of it. So I was willing to outlay, I've already got more than $4,000 put out of my pocket. I don't even own the property yet. So I wanted to get it to start on it before winter. I'm more than willing, by the 18th I'll have the funds. I'd be able to come in as soon as we close, go and pull permits. The permit process, I can't really, I've got to finish the demo, get drawings done, get them to the city. They've got to approve those. So it's going to take a little time for me to get permits actually pulled. They won't approve them until I actually, it's a little harder now to get actual permits approved. And then once I get that part done, then I have to get my plumbers in there. They have to look at the plans, give me a bid, so I have every intention of doing it. I'll have the funds available by the 18th. I just, that's when I'm getting the funds, so
Have you come up with a tentative timeline as to?
It'll take about 4 months. And basically, so we're closing on the 20th. By the time I get permits, let's say we're the 1st of December. So I'm guessing by the end of March, first couple of weeks of April, we should have it completed. And we're replacing everything. We're not saving it. We're putting new wiring, new plumbing, new drywall. Everything will be new in the house. We're not trying to nickel and dime it. This won't be a crappy house. We did the one across the street. That was that big 4-unit that just sold for under $90,000. We took that 4-unit, turned it into a single family. We don't do cheap work. We do. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it complete because I don't cut corners.
Mr. Allen?
That sounds pretty reasonable for the as far as a planning of it.
Well, here's my suggestion, unless do you have any questions, Mr. Koss?
I just want to clarify. So this was boarded up and red tagged in 2019, and then the fire happened. Do we know if someone was living in the house when the fire occurred?
I do not know. I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it was vacant.
Because I'm just trying to, if it was boarded up, because there's a mixture of pictures in here. So the house was unsafe before the fire.
Right.
Well, we had to board it multiple times because somebody kept breaking in it.
Okay.
If that's what you're
Okay.
saying.
Yeah, sorry, I see pictures of non-burned and burned, so I'm just
Right.
trying to
It wasn't boarded
fully
up
get
in 2019. It may have been red tag, but it wasn't boarded up.
Right.
Okay. All right, that's the only question I had on this right now.
This is my suggestion. We have another public safety meeting on the 21st.
Okay.
You're talking about closing on the 20th.
Correct.
We have a council meeting on the 27th. So what I would propose is that we table this until the 21st public safety meeting. By then you should have your closing.
Yep.
You would then own it. And then you can, between then, during that period of time, is to have a conversation with Mr. Allen and come up with a plan to give to this committee. And then, as long as we believe that that's a good plan, then what we'll do is then meet on a monthly basis, public safety would, to make sure that you're meeting the requirements and following through on what you're going to do. If come the 21st you don't own it and
Yep.
things aren't moving
Understood.
forward,
Understood.
then what we're going to do is recommend that it go before the council for make safe or demolish, and then what you would have is 30 days from the date that would happen on the 27th. You'd have 30 days to bring it to a condition that it met the threshold of moving it off the make safe and demolish list.
Okay. Yep.
Okay.
That's fair.
So do I have a motion to table
Motion to table.
for the next meeting?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does that meet with you as well?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
All right.
Do you have a card, Mr. Allen?
I actually think
Could I get a
got
couple?
one.
So I can have one?
You got one?
I have to think.
I need
Sir,
one.
can I get your name, please?
Yes,
for the record?
Robert
I don't have one with me.
Twinter.
I give you my
T-W-E-N-T-E-R.
Write your number on the back one of mine.
All right. That does it.
Perfect.
And then you did sign in on the sign-in.
No, I didn't. I didn't
Okay.
know if I needed to sign in.
Let's
Yeah.
make sure you sign in, and then if you have contact information so that when we have to,
Great.
as we get close to the next meeting, Renee will reach out to you and remind you of the meeting.
Perfect.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
That takes us to Assistant Chief Backus.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Appreciate you giving me the time on your agenda to discuss this. So I'd like to just go over license plate reader technology
Okay.
and talk a little bit about what we've learned about it and what our hopes are for it.
Okay.
So if you weren't familiar with it, we first obtained license plate reader technology in 2013. We had mobile versions of it. And at that time, our infrastructure just didn't support the technology. It wasn't fast enough like what we have now with cellular technology. So its use was very inconsistent for us. On top of that, we didn't have the highest quality equipment when we first got license plate reader technology, so we had a lot of errors with it. We were constantly maintaining it. And ultimately, we scrapped the program because it just wasn't worth our time and our efforts. But things have changed quite a bit with this technology. It's been a goal of mine to bring this into our toolbox for our police department, primarily because of my time with our investigations unit and just seeing how much of a pattern we have with vehicles being involved in crime. I don't think that's a big surprise that vehicles are associated to a lot of our different investigations. Just specifically though, this is going from 2020 when we had our increases in gun violence. What we saw is when we started opening back up from the pandemic, our vehicle-related crimes started going through the roof. And a lot of that was, of course, gun-related, and we saw the two come together, where a lot of violent crime was being conducted not only with firearms, but with some type of involvement of vehicles as well. So as an example of that, we started tracking how many times we have shots fired into a dwellings. So most people refer to those as drive-bys. From 2019 to 2020, we had a 300% increase, over 300% increase in reports of drive-by shootings, where someone's actually driving by and firing rounds into an occupied house. 2021 went down slightly, but we were still over 200% increase of where we were in 2019. These are challenging crimes for us because they happen in just a moment's notice. Most of the witnesses don't actually come out to provide information until after they hear something. So when they give us the information on what possibly transpired, they'll give us a description of a car and a direction of travel, and that's about it. Typically, our pattern is this happens at night. And so as you can see from that, we have a very low closure rate on these. And that's problematic because some of these have turned into homicides. We have drive-bys where people that were not the intended target have been struck. And where this weighs heavy on me is that these are unsolved cases because they have such little information for us to work with. Outside of just the drive-by shootings we've had on houses, there's other homicide cases that currently we're struggling with that involve vehicles that I know that maybe one more piece of information would be enough for us to turn the corner on it and find some leads and work towards closure. So I'll give you one example is a case where we had a victim driving down Martin Luther King, and we found out later that the accused, the suspects, were following them all the way from basically the river to Edgewood. And when the two vehicles came side by side on Edgewood, the accused fire into the victim's vehicle and kills the driver. This is an unsolved case. We have video footage of it. We can put the two vehicles side by side. What we don't know is whose vehicles those are. I'm sorry, I should say for the suspect. There's nothing distinguishable. There's nothing overly distinguishable about the suspect vehicle. We just have the car. We have the exact same similar circumstance that happened less than a month later, where a group of vehicles on our surveillance cameras, and these are all our surveillance cameras, so we're doing that part of it. We can see this group of vehicles turn down a dead-end road. There's a fatal shooting that happens at that dead-end road, and we see the vehicles leave. What we don't know is whose vehicles those are. So these are two cases that I feel if we had one more piece of information from these, that we could get farther along in these cases. So I'm not talking about insignificant instances, I'm talking about real cases that we're stuck on. And that we're looking for some type of technology that could help us. So looking at these, and these are from 2021, so these have been on our minds and on our plates for a long time working these. We're looking at ways that we could help with our investigations moving forward, places that we've been deficient. We've had some success in using LPRs when there were other people's systems. So for example, the way LPR works is if I'm looking for a vehicle that I do know, for example, if I have a suspect and I know a suspect drives this vehicle, I can say, if anyone sees this vehicle, please contact us. And we've done that. And so you take a city like Kalamazoo, who through some grant funds to address their violent crime has purchased license plate readers. They notified us that one of the vehicles that was associated to one of our homicides was in their city the day after the homicide. So through our groups and their teams, we were able to coordinate finding that vehicle, contacting the suspects, and ultimately our main accused was in that vehicle, and we were able to make a successful arrest in a day. With our technology in Lansing, we can't do that because we don't know that that exists. We don't know where that vehicle is. So this is one, and it's a great example of how our crime is mobile, our suspects are mobile, and when we're communicating people through the use of, we're communicating with each other and using technology, we can be more successful on these serious crimes. Besides Kalamazoo, there's been a lot of agencies in the state of Michigan that are starting to lean towards the license plate reader technology to help solve some of their crime problems, and not just violent crime. If you've seen, there's been some public announcements in the past year and a half from Jackson Police Department. It's how they've chose to address their violent crime issues by installing license plate readers. Battle Creek is using them. Flint Police Department. The Michigan State Police has come out with a plan that's going to put license plate readers on the highways from the southern border to the bridge. Lansing is somewhat excluded in that because they haven't identified 496 right now, but we're hoping that they'll put 496 on their list at some point. In total, just in one specific company, there's 80 cities and counties in Michigan that are utilizing license plate reader technology within the past 3 years. I've mentioned just violent crime, but one of the biggest benefits to this is stolen vehicles. And I'm sure that nobody here is a stranger to the information that we've put out about Kia thefts. So it wouldn't surprise you that, you know, in the last 3 years, stolen vehicles is our year-over-year largest increase in any one specific crime. In just this year, it's up 57%. And that's mainly due to the Kia thefts. One thing that license plate reader technology does is it identifies where stolen vehicles are, where stolen vehicles have traveled to, and helps put officers in those locations. And the way the technology works is when you have fixed license plate readers and a stolen vehicle goes by, you can actually alert the closest officer that there's a stolen vehicle in that area. You can also coordinate with your special teams, like for example, we have a motorcycle unit or a traffic unit. And with license plate reader technology, you can position groups of stationary officers who are following these license plate reader hits and then directing them to where those vehicles are at in hopes of recovering some of these cars. I might mention a couple of different crimes, but when I think about the license plate reader technology, I think about all the different areas we would use them. So for us, we get a lot of missing persons, we get a lot of endangered persons, and endangers would include people that have some type of, let's say Alzheimer's, where they sometimes will get into a car and go driving and the parents can't find them, and they have no idea where they're at, but they give us a description of the person and they tell us what kind of car they're in and what kind of plate they're driving in. We just put that over the radio waves, and then we are relying on our officers to be observant and find people. With license plate reader technology, one thing that will do is when we get those reports, we can immediately pull up and see if that license plate has hit off any of our readers. Is that person traveling somewhere? Where were they last seen? What direction were they at? Agencies are doing that with not only the endangered and missing people, but some of the, let's say just overall, some of the very elderly people who are kind of getting to the stage of Alzheimer's or dementia, and they're losing track of where they're at when they're driving. And it's helping us recover people safely in a faster amount of time. It's also used for when we have something like an Amber Alert. And I'll use the example from this July when we had a kidnapping, ultimately the murder of Winter Cole Smith. When we had that happen, the one thing that we knew from the very beginning was that we had a missing girl, we had an identified person, we had a stolen vehicle. But what we didn't know was where that vehicle went. So ultimately that vehicle got recovered in Detroit. And once that vehicle was recovered, we started a search for where our missing 2-year-old girl was going to be at. And so in the preceding days, every single person in our department that was able, and our local partners and our federal partners, if you saw us, we walked every single inch of every highway in this city and then extended down to Williamston. And that was all because we had no idea where this car had traveled. And so when we were looking for a recovery effort in our area, we knew what area we had to focus on. But in some areas, when you have license plate technology, you can really narrow that down. If we'd have known that that car would have gotten directly on 96 and headed to Detroit, we would not have been where we were. We would not have spent that time looking in the Lansing highways in the wrong direction. We would have focused our efforts down towards Detroit, where we knew our suspect had been arrested at. So that's just some of the different criminal aspects or uses in day-to-day. The other part about license plate technology, I think that gets people a little bit nervous is the idea of what it does and what it doesn't do. And what it doesn't do is, I think, more important than what it does do, because there's some misconceptions about it. So first off, when you're dealing with license plate reader technologies, it's not a surveillance camera. It's not going to take a live picture, a live movie. It just takes a snapshot. And all it wants in that snapshot is your license plate. And when it takes a snapshot of that license plate, it's only recording what the numbers and letters are. So there's no personal information that's attached to that license plate in this LPR technology. So if I was to get a license plate picture, I would have to use our other systems, our state of Michigan databases, to figure out who that license plate belongs to. But in itself, it's just a picture of a license plate with nothing else. The other part is that there's no pictures of the drivers. So this isn't something that connects to facial recognition, which has worried people before, is that there's facial recognition on this. It also can't be used for any type of traffic enforcement. So we're not looking at who the driver is. That's not our concern in terms of using license plate reader technology. It's just capturing what's the plate that's associated to this vehicle. When we look at the information that it gathers, again, it's just gathering the snapshots. But when you think about the license plate reader technology, when license plate readers are designed to be in your busiest areas, we're not looking to gather information from vehicles that are traveling through residential areas. Pick the biggest areas in the city, that's where we're interested at, the most vehicle traffic. And in that sense, you're taking a lot of information in. We don't want all that information. We only want the information that's relevant to other crimes that are happening. So there's a specific set time that we would hold that information, and then we just purge it. We do have a current policy that says that we use 30 days for that. And that's an industry standard, is to do it for 30 days. Because if that license plate picture is going to become relevant to some other crime, you need to know in 30 days, or else you lose it. When you start holding that information, that's where we open ourselves up to a lot of scrutiny as to why are we holding information that we're not doing anything with. In terms of how we store that information, so first of all, when a license plate camera captures a plate, we own that information. It doesn't go out to something that's shared with everybody. Not all law enforcement has access to that plate. We own it. If it shows up, they have to ask us for it. And so one of the things that we have in our policy is the idea that if anyone, even internally, if we're going to access that database and search for a plate, you have to, not only does it recognize who you are and what you're doing, but you have to note as part of an audit trail why you're doing that. And there has to be a case number associated to it. I can't randomly ask where this plate's been just because I'm curious where this person is driving around. It has to be related to an actual investigation. I think that speaks to the value that we hold in it and the safeguards that we're willing to put on it. And these are, I'm not reinventing the wheel here. This is stuff that is, the agencies that are using this technology is doing, they're doing this right now. Outside of that, I think that this really complements our current camera system efforts. And what I mean by that is, I'll give you an example. There's a recent homicide that happened in Ingham County where they found a deceased female. When they started investigating that, they found her last known location in Lansing through our public surveillance. Using that public surveillance, they didn't identify the person, but they found video footage of the person and a vehicle. A week later, they're able to find that person and that vehicle and put that person in custody. But in between those 7 days after they knew that crime had happened and where it happened at, they couldn't identify who the person was and they couldn't identify the vehicle. My hope is that if we have license plate reader technology, that what took 7 days to do, we can do in a much shorter amount of time. Because then we're able to associate a vehicle with a person. And in this case, had we had this type of technology, I think we would have been able to do that. Just to give you a little bit of an update on currently what my efforts are, there's one specific vendor that I'm partial to. They're called Flock Safety. They are owned by a company called Axon. If you're familiar with that, they own all of our body cameras. So we're already familiar with the parent company. We understand how they deal with information. We understand their security, because that's a big part when you're taking in information that's in a public setting and then you're storing it. They use Amazon Web Services, if you're interested, and that's the kind of the gold standard for security and safety when it comes to housing information. A couple years ago, we got a legislative grant to increase our footprint for security measures around the Capitol. And so when we're looking at the camera placement around the Capitol, these license plate readers go hand in hand with that, and we would be covered by the same legislative grant for that increase in security, or that upgrade in security. And then finally, the way this technology is trending, Michigan State Police has already put out grant efforts for people that are interested in purchasing license plate readers through grant efforts. That's primarily due to through auto theft, because that's what they're seeing statewide and nationally as a trend, and that's what they're trying to put grant funding behind so that people can address it. I know I threw a lot of stuff at you, but this is a technology that I'm very fond of. and I hope to bring to our department and our city. And I thought this would be the right place to do an overview of this.
So, from what I understand, you've already developed a procedure that would be handled in the department, correct?
Correct.
You are looking at first the legislative grant that you got to do some around the Capitol, correct?
Correct.
And then you're looking at getting some additional grants for those that would be in high traffic areas like MLK, Cedar, Michigan Avenue, Pennsylvania, those corridors.
Man, that is exactly where I would look at putting
Okay.
new locations at.
So what you're doing right now is giving us an overview of what you're doing. You're not asking us to create an ordinance or to approve funding or to do anything else other than for us to understand what it is that the department's looking at.
That's exactly it. At some point, I'm going to present information or a proposal when we do go to purchase the technology. And the more that people know about it, I think the more people can make a decision on it. But until you actually know about the technology, I think some of it just by its purpose can be questionable. And it's important to know what safeguards in place, what the technology is and what it's not, and how we intend to use it and what we intend to use it for.
With the old system that you had, that's my understanding you're not utilizing right now, correct?
Right.
Were there anything in the procedures that you wrote for that you felt that you needed to modify for this new technology?
Yes. I mean, those came out in 2013, and the word transparency wasn't a big part of police reforms. It is now. So just putting in there that as we go through our policies, that transparency will be, the policy gets put on the transparency page of the department. The other part to that is the safeguarding and the auditing of the information. So what we've gone back and addressed is who's the data administrator for this plan, and who conducts the audits on it, and who grants approval for if you want to put something in the system as an alert, whose responsibility is to remove it, and then also who's granting the permissions for people in there. We've identified those roles in our department.
So the department will be the ones that are safeguarding this data,
Right.
the person overseeing it. Was there any thought given to someone that is not within the police department for oversight? I mean, this is some pretty powerful data.
It is and it isn't. It's powerful in the sense that if you know what to do with it, or you have an ability to do something with it. I think it would be powerful if everyone had access to it and everyone had the freedom to search it anytime they want without any type of audit trail at all. We recognize, though, that could be abused. So the idea that there is a strong audit trail that says when I logged in, what I searched, why I searched for it, and that gets reviewed on a monthly basis too.
I guess my suggestion would be, as you're looking at this, to consider an outside oversight on that. I know that there's going to be questions of trust and people's personal information, with the readers, and I know that it's just the plate, but I've heard that several times. They're worried about their own civil liberties, and the Big Brother cameras everywhere. We're turning into all the movies that were based on the future. So I would just make that suggestion. The other question I had is, you said that it just takes a picture of a plate. Does it take a picture of the car though? Because you have to be able to identify the car too, right?
Correct. So you will get like the rear part of the car.
Okay. So it's not just the plate; it's the whole back end of the car.
Yeah. So that's accurate.
Okay. So if it's getting the back end of the car, would it be at such an angle that it could see the back head of passengers in the car?
My personal experience with it is that you can't see the people in the car.
I'm at, because I don't know.
Right.
So I'm, trying to, I've only seen these on like vehicles, police vehicles. I think Indiana State Highway Patrol people use them.
That wouldn't surprise me. They're really common right now.
So, okay.
And just for clarification, what I heard you say is that the only people that can access the license number is through our other systems. You have to be a police officer to be able to access that information, correct?
Correct. If it's associated to someone's personally identifying information, their PII, that comes from an entirely different system, and that's access controlled. So for an example, if I have a picture of your license plate and I put it out here, we all just see the same picture of the car and the license plate. What I can do with that is I can then put that into the law enforcement information network, and it can tell me who is registered to that vehicle. And that's where the PII comes from.
But that also, you have to put in your badge number and
Absolutely.
all your stuff. It's
And
not
those two
just...
systems don't connect, and they won't connect. They're separate for a reason.
How many of these do you think that you're looking to deploy?
Just looking at the area around downtown and the Capitol, 4 would be sufficient. Again, it's not something that requires a camera every so many feet. This is something where you're looking at a larger area and you're looking for mass amounts of traffic, large traffic areas.
I assume that you're probably using some kind of a crime overlay as well to pick these spots. Okay.
Yep, we've gotten data from not only our own crime statistics, but we've looked at where our, let's say, our traffic crash data is too, because ultimately if we have license plate reader cameras and we have hit and run accidents, and this is stuff that we're going to be able to benefit from as well. So looking at traffic patterns from MDOT as to MDOT, where their main major thoroughfares are, our crime and access control points.
So now I have another question. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Will it be able to read? I've seen this more and more. People stick their plates in their back window of their vehicle. Will it be able to pick up those plates?
It's a good question. I don't have an answer to that.
Okay.
That probably deals with what the technology in the cameras, if it's dedicated to a certain area on a car, or if it's able to identify numbers and letter and patterns anywhere on it.
That you're going to come back anyway, so maybe we can find out in between then and now if it does, because I'd be curious to know that.
Yeah.
I know it doesn't read cars with no plates. That's pretty clear.
Yeah, this is true.
So that brings a whole other question. I mean, part of what we've heard from the public is you've got all these cars out there that are running around with no plates on them. So will there be part of this, just like for drunk driving and things like that, would you be looking at doing some additional enforcement on making sure people have proper plates on their cars?
Absolutely. I think if you look at the big picture of things, if we get into a pattern where people are taking their plates off their cars, which isn't supported in the other areas where this has been instituted at.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that now police are looking for cars without plates on, that's easier for me to look for than a specific car with a specific plate that I know is stolen. So if you look at the idea of technology kind of taken out of some of the officer's awareness, having to memorize all the plates that we have in our system right now is stolen, and just saying, the computer will tell me if there's stolen vehicles in certain areas. One thing that I can see easily, and it's very identifiable, is when a vehicle is driving without a plate. That's something I can take care of with.
And we are pulling folks that don't have plates over, correct?
We are.
Okay.
Go ahead.
One more.
Go ahead.
People put those frames, those mirrored or smoked. I had one on my car at one point too. Over the plate. We'll be able to read through those.
I'm not familiar with that, but that's a really good question.
You know what I'm talking about.
I can tell you that just in the sense of, having one of those tinted things over your license plate, it is an infraction. People aren't technically allowed to have that over their license plate because it can inhibit the view of it. But it's a good question of whether this technology could see through that clear enough to get a plate. So the other part that it's important to say is there's always a checks and balance. So part of our policy says that if there's any type of registered, we'll call it a hit, where the computer catches a plate that has some type of affiliation to a crime, there has to be a verification from the officer. Just that hit on itself is not permissible to just make a stop on a vehicle until you verify it independently.
Well, we thank you for coming in and sharing this information with us.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. Do we have anything else?
I don't believe so.
All right, then we stand adjourned.
Really?